Hi again, it's Sean from Crest Investigations here in Northwich, Cheshire, with yet another one of our video blogs. Now, the thing I'd like to just cover today briefly, well, a couple of aspects that I've been asked to comment on. Some of the aspects of work that we cover, that we can do for you as an individual, one of which I feel quite strongly about. It takes me back to my days from when I was in the police. Is that of domestic abuse. Excuse me. As an individual, you don't believe me or not, it doesn't actually have to be females. There's quite a lot of males these days who are victims of personal violence in the home, particularly, and they feel trapped and they don't know what they can do about it. A lot of the time, especially nowadays with the cuts in the police, even with the best will in the world, the police can't be everywhere and they can't be as efficient as they used to be, shall we say. Rightly or wrongly, whether we agree or not, that's just the way things are. So you may well ask, well, what can be done to sort this situation out that I find myself in? First of all, obviously you need to go to seek some legal advice, possibly depending on your financial status and your ability to pay. You may want to go to the Citizens Advice Bureau, who can give you some extremely good advice for no cost. You may want to get advice from a good family or divorce lawyer or a general solicitors who can give you advice with regards to what can and can't be done from a civil point of view and also a criminal point of view. Now, in this day and age, with regards to approaching the police and basically being given the brush off, which seems to be par for the course these days, whenever we find ourselves being employed to do a lot of work which the police should be doing, should we say, or have done previously, if you went to the police with an allegation of assault or harassment or something of that nature, particularly domestic nature, there tends to be, rightly or wrongly, and in different levels across the country, you can either be treated very well and be listened to, and your case be actioned very well in certain parts of the country and with certain individuals, and in other parts and with other individuals you may be given the brush off and you get nowhere. What you find or will find is that if you employ the services of a private investigator, such as myself at Crest Investigations, we can do a lot of the work that the police would historically have done for you for relatively little cost. And we can then present that to the police as a partial or almost completed file of prosecution, which would basically leave them to just essentially arrest the perpetrator and deal with them by putting them in front of the courts. Or there are other avenues that the police can actually adopt these days without actually taking people to court, to give you that little bit of respite and protection from this person. Obviously we're talking about things like assaults, personal assaults from common assaults. Essentially involves just the mere touch or extremely minor natured assaults. Though they are assaults, they're not considered serious. It's the most minor level of assault that's considered in the UK. Then from there you've got ABH, as people call it, or Section 47, actual bodily harm offence, which is slightly higher up the scale, but I think these days it's not considered too serious, depending on the individual courts and the circumstances surrounding the particular assault. They can end up with custodial sentences in criminal courts, and in civil courts you can be given certain protection rights from that person, namely restraining orders, and orders that contain powers of arrest for the police should a person who's convicted of this particular assault continue to behave in a certain manner towards you. Some orders that are given from the courts as a level of protection for victims, some of them contain powers of arrest for the police and some of them don't. Essentially the ones that don't aren't worth the paper that they're written on, because all that happens is the police turn up and they say that we can't do anything about the situation, and at best they can arrest the person for low-level harassment offences or what's termed a breach of the peace. But this is an extremely short-term measure which will only alleviate the situation for that particular day or evening, and then the person is back out again doing what they want essentially the next day. You've got higher level assaults with regards to what's called GBH. Now there are two levels of assault with regards to GBH. One is a section 20 assault and the other one is a section 18. A section 18 is the more serious of the two offences. It involves grievous bodily harm with intent. In other words, somebody that assaults another person and leaves a serious injury, usually a tear of the skin or something of a semi-permanent or permanent nature, injury-wise, with the intent of doing it, is considered a serious offence. A section 20 is this similar offence but without the intent. In other words, somebody could be or receive quite serious injuries from a third party who didn't intend to actually go that far, if you like. Now, it's not to say that they didn't intend to hurt the person, but through their actions, which would be backed up by statements and or other evidence before the court, that will determine with regards to what the person's what's called mens rea, or what they were thinking at the time of the offence and immediately before and during. If it can be proved that the person had the intent to cause that injury, then the more serious section 18 offence is one that's preferred. Now, I'm sorry I've gone into that a little bit in depth, but essentially they are varying levels of assault that are dealt with in the criminal courts mainly. Now, civil courts can deal with levels of assault too. It doesn't have to go through a criminal court. The police don't have to be involved. But without the police's involvement and going through a civil procedure in the civil courts via your own solicitor, the level of burden of proof in a civil court is a lot less than it is in a criminal court. In a criminal court, you have to have, convictions are only based on damning evidence, if you like. A certain level of evidence has to be met, a threshold, beyond, as you've heard the terminology before, beyond a reasonable doubt. If it can be argued in court that a crime has taken place as a result of what a person has done, etc., an assault, and a certain level of proof is provided, that person will be found guilty. In a civil court, that level is considerably less. It's the outcome is based on what's called the balance of probabilities. Is it probable that person behaved in such a manner in order to cause the injuries, etc., etc.? And if it is probable and not necessarily proved beyond a reasonable doubt, but probable, the person will be found guilty of the offence. The main difference between criminal and civil procedures tends to be the sentencing. Criminal procedures have a far greater level of punishment, shall we say, particularly with regards to custodial sentencing, as opposed to civil. Now, on the other hand, with regards to certain offences that come in front of the civil courts, we've all heard of the high-profile cases whereby somebody's been called names essentially in the press, and they've sued them for defamation of character, etc., etc., and they will win an award of millions of pounds. That's unfortunately the world we live in. There's nothing you or me can do about that. We have to accept what the courts of the land dish out. It's as simple as that. Yeah, so with regards to what can be done from a private eye's point of view for people who are in fear of violence or have been subjected to violence, been assaulted, harassment, all different levels of personal violence towards an individual. As I say, we can do all of that legwork, statement taking, witness interviews. We can even do interviews with the person who's alleging, who's alleged has actually committed the offence under what's called PACE rules, police and criminal evidence interviewing, etc., where certain things have got to be adhered to with regards to the recording and retaining of the information and any conversations that take place. As I say, we can do all of this, put it all into some legible form which is acceptable to the court. We can then, possibly with the person who's making the allegation, attend the police station and get a police officer to actually take on board the case and make an arrest. So yeah, there are things that can be done. Don't think that things can't be done, because they can. As I said in previous video blogs, if you're in any doubt and you don't know who to speak to, even, pick up the phone, speak to me, run the case by me, run the scenario, and I'll tell you what I think. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm obviously giving you my experience from being in the police and as an investigator. I don't get paid for that sort of thing. That's the job of a solicitor, but I will freely give my advice to you, and I will tell you what we can or can't do for you. So please don't be frightened, pick up the phone and we'll have a conversation. People often ask, it tends to be business premises, especially with this day and age, with the demise of the high street, offices, business premises, car parks, supermarkets, etc. Form trespass, essentially. People become very intimidated, particularly by groups of travellers who are on their land and they don't know what to do. So most people will immediately get on the phone to a solicitor. Especially if you're a business, you tend to have contacts with a certain solicitor or firm of solicitors. And you can go down the legal route with regards to getting these people off your land and keeping them off. This is something that we can get involved with also. The police tend to turn up to such events nowadays and do nothing. So a lot of the time, even as a business customer or a private individual, unless you can prove that that person is keeping you out of your home, where you currently reside, etc., the police are going to do nothing for you. All they're going to do is record the fact that there were so many caravans, vehicles, etc., etc. on your land, or you've got squatters in your house. As if it's a house or a premises particularly that you're not residing in or intending to reside in, shall we say, in the throes of doing it up and actually moving into it, there are certain limitations anyway under the Criminal Law Act. However, there are certain things that can be done, and it has to go through a certain legal process with regards to offences of trespass, and there are certain orders that can be given by the civil courts with regards to evicting people and getting them off your premises, off your land. And there are various different laws available to both the legal profession and the police with regards to how they deal with particularly travellers. I won't go into too much depth, but the police actually have nowadays, I would say, they have very good powers to deal with travellers, so long as they are actually on land with a certain amount of vehicles, which can include caravans, etc. If there's a certain amount of vehicles on the land, the police can basically get them off almost, well, on the same day, shall we say. With regards to civil, which tends to be the vast majority of cases, civil cases of trespass, you have to go down the avenues of serving the occupants who are there rightly or wrongly, legally or illegally, with certain documentation in a certain fashion, which is acceptable to the courts, in order to get a successful eviction and recover your property or land, your possession, shall we say. There are certain procedures which have to be adhered to, which I won't go into, but these are all things that we at Crest Investigations can do for you on a very cost-effective and efficient basis. And if you find yourself in that position, again, give us a call. A phone call costs you nothing. Give us a call 079 259 25977, or you can drop me a line at crest-investigations.co.uk, the website, or email admin@crest-investigations.co.uk. My name's Sean. Until the next time, I'll say goodbye for now.